Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's topic is going to blow your mind. Before we begin, make sure to hit the subscribe button and press the bell icon so you never miss our daily history uploads. Share this video with your friends and family so they can also explore the hidden mysteries of history. Let's start today's topic. The wind howls through the jagged stone towers of a medieval castle, carrying with it the scent of damp moss, smoke from the kitchens, and the faint, ever-present tang of the nearby river. Imagine approaching one of these colossal fortresses for the first time in the height of the Middle Ages. The massive wooden drawbridge creaks under the weight of your footsteps, chains rattling as it lowers over a dark, water-filled moat. You hear the muffled chatter of guards behind arrow slits, their metal armor clinking as they pace tirelessly, ever alert to the threats lurking beyond the horizon. It is not just a home, but a statement of power, a symbol of authority, a fortress designed as much to intimidate as to protect. Inside the cold, echoing walls, life is a strange mixture of opulence and hardship. The stone corridors are lined with tapestries depicting battles long past, their threads faded yet still vibrant with the colors of blood and glory. These tapestries are more than decoration. They are messages, subtle reminders of the Lord's victories, meant to inspire loyalty and fear alike. Yet the floors are uneven and damp, often slick with water that seeps through the centuries-old masonry. The scent of roasted meats mingles with the mustiness of damp woolen garments hung on hooks, a constant reminder that medieval castles were alive with the rhythm of human labor, not just empty monuments of stone. In the great hall, long wooden tables groan under the weight of roasted game, crusty bread, and coarse ale. Servants scurry between the tables, carrying platters and refilling tankards, while minstrels play haunting tunes that echo against the stone walls. Yet behind the scene of pageantry, the realities of castle life are harsh. Latrines are primitive, often open pits or simple stone seats over the edge of the wall, leading to smells that modern visitors can hardly imagine enduring. Heating is minimal. Only the Lord and his family enjoy the slight comfort of tapestries hung near small hearths, while the rest huddle near drafty corridors or the kitchens, trying to keep warm. Even the simple act of daily life, eating, sleeping, or washing, is a complicated ritual that requires negotiation with both the castle's layout and the unrelenting demands of hierarchy. But castles were not merely homes or dining halls. They were laboratories of survival and strategy. The narrow, twisting staircases were designed to confuse invaders, forcing them into single file and giving defenders above a tactical advantage. Arrow slits are too narrow to allow most enemies to enter, but wide enough for defenders to shoot accurately. The walls themselves, sometimes over 20 feet thick, were layered with a mix of stone and mortar that could withstand catapults and fire. And beneath these walls lay secret passages, tunnels hidden behind false panels or beneath floorboards, designed for escapes, ambushes, or clandestine meetings. Some of these passages, whispered about in old chronicles, were so ingeniously hidden that even long-time residents might forget their existence until they were needed in a time of peril. Yet despite all the defenses, medieval castles were living communities. Children ran barefoot across courtyards, their laughter echoing in the shadow of the towering keeps. Blacksmiths hammered in small workshops, sending sparks flying against the dark stone, while animals, dogs, pigs, chickens, wandered freely, adding both life and chaos to the grounds. Markets sometimes emerged within the castle walls, with traders selling textiles, spices, and tools, their cries blending with the rhythmic clang of armor being repaired and the distant neigh of horses in stables. Each corner of the castle carried its own microcosm of life, a delicate balance between order and chaos, protection and exposure, opulence and squalor. Most outsiders imagine medieval castles as cold, lifeless fortresses where kings and knights plotted in silence. The reality, however, was far more complex and surprisingly human. The air was alive with gossip, the clatter of armor, the sense of smoke and sweat, and the tension of constant vigilance. Every stone tells a story of ambition, fear, triumph, and loss, capturing centuries of human experience within walls that seem, to the modern eye, almost impervious and eternal. Yet behind every imposing gate and arrow slit lay secrets that few dare to uncover. Hidden rooms, mysterious tunnels, forbidden chambers, and unspoken rules that govern life within these stone giants. Even the lords themselves, figures of apparent invincibility, were enmeshed in a fragile dance of politics, inheritance, and survival. Alliances were fragile. A single betrayal could lead to a siege or worse. The castles we admire today were not built for comfort, but as bulwarks against treachery and violence, designed to protect against enemies both outside the walls and within the human hearts they sheltered. The grandeur of Banquet Hall or the beauty of an intricately carved stone archway belied a world where danger and intrigue were constant companions, and where every seemingly idle corridor might conceal a trap or a secret chamber known only to a select few. As night falls, torches flicker against the damp stone, casting long, dancing shadows that bring the castle to life in a different way. You can hear the occasional shriek of an owl, the distant barking of a dog, and the soft murmurs of those still awake. Guards, servants, and perhaps the Lord himself, pacing the battlements as he contemplates the precarious balance of power. Somewhere beneath your feet, a secret passage lies hidden, and in the quiet darkness, one cannot help but wonder what tales it might tell if it could speak. Medieval castles are not merely relics of the past. They are living chronicles, repositories of human ingenuity, fear, ambition, and resilience. Each stone, each tapestry, each corridor holds a story, and some of these stories are stranger than any legend, stranger than any fiction we might conjure. As we step deeper into their world, we begin to uncover the untold secrets, the shocking truths, and the hidden lives that make these fortresses far more fascinating than their imposing walls suggest. And this is only the beginning of our journey. Behind these doors, within these walls, lies a world that will challenge everything you think you know about medieval castles. As dawn breaks over the castle, a golden haze spills across the ramparts, illuminating the rough-hewn stone with a fleeting warmth. Birds chirp hesitantly, flitting from the battlements to the outer trees, and the first hints of smoke curl from the kitchens, signaling the start of another day. Life inside the castle awakens in a rhythm dictated by necessity and hierarchy. The Lord rises first, followed by his family, and then the servants and guards, each moving with a practiced efficiency honed over years of routine. But behind this daily rhythm, the castle harbors secrets far darker and stranger than mere schedules or chores, a labyrinth of hidden truths that would shock even the most hardened visitor. One of the most astonishing secrets lies in the very stones themselves. Castles were built not only to defend against enemies, but to deceive them. Hidden compartments were common, often disguised as ordinary parts of the structure. A section of wall that seemed solid might conceal a tiny alcove for hiding treasure, letters, or even people. Some castles had secret rooms accessible only by pulling a particular brick or turning a carved statue, with mechanisms so intricate that even the Lord himself might forget their exact locations. These spaces were used to hide everything from gold and silver to forbidden lovers or political prisoners. Imagine a small, dark chamber, cold and damp, smelling of mold and centuries-old dust, where someone might be imprisoned for years without a single visitor, completely invisible to the rest of the castle. Beyond secret chambers, many castles possess an even more chilling feature: hidden dungeons beneath the very foundations. Not all dungeons were mere cells for criminals or captured enemies. Some were designed as instruments of terror, intended to maintain order through fear. A whisper of screams carried through the stone corridors could be enough to silence rebellion among servants or even knights. The dungeons were pitch black, often flooded with water or filth, and populated with rudimentary chains and restraints. The echo of a clanging key or the scrape of metal could resonate throughout the castle, a haunting reminder that every stone held both protection and menace. Yet life in the castle was not all punishment and fear. In the upper chambers, where the Lord and his family dwelled, there existed a surprisingly sophisticated domestic life. The walls were adorned with tapestries depicting idyllic hunting scenes or biblical stories, designed to impress guests and reinforce the Lord's cultured image. Bedrooms were modest by modern standards, but lavish compared to the servants' quarters. Feather-stuffed mattresses, woolen blankets, and small wooden chests of clothing offered comfort, while delicate windows carved with intricate stone tracery allowed light to filter in, painting colored patterns across the floor. And yet, even here, the architecture masked subtle security measures. Beds could be moved to block secret entrances. Curtains concealed alcoves, and passages led quietly from one chamber to another, enabling escape in case of an attack. The kitchens, meanwhile, were a world apart, bustling with the chaos of preparation, and the smells of roasting meat, baking bread, and simmering stews. Smoke blackened the ceiling beams, while the sounds of chopping, scraping, and sizzling filled the air. Peasants and servants worked tirelessly, often enduring grueling hours with little respite, their lives hidden from the splendor above. The contrast was stark. Above, the Lord's family enjoyed luxury, warmth, and refinement, while below, the laborers were subjected to constant toil, their sweat mingling with the heat of the fire and the pungent odors of the kitchen. Yet even within this controlled chaos, secrets persisted. Recipes for certain meals, especially those believed to hold medicinal or mystical properties, were jealously guarded. Some dishes contained rare herbs thought to protect against illness, poison, or even malevolent spirits, and the knowledge of these concoctions was passed carefully from cook to apprentice. Castles also harbored a strange mixture of superstition and religion. Chapels and shrines were commonplace, adorned with icons and relics. But not every sacred space was as pious as it seemed. Some served as hiding places for illicit items or secret communications, while others were strategically placed to give the illusion of divine protection to the castle's occupants. Monks or chaplains within the castle walls wielded subtle influence, advising on everything from spiritual matters to political strategy. Their prayers and rituals were believed to protect the stronghold from not only human enemies but supernatural threats. The walls themselves were thought to carry the weight of blessings or curses, and the placement of stones, doors, and even furniture often reflected an intricate understanding of superstition and symbolism. The castle's courtyard was another stage for secrets and intrigue. By day, it was a place of commerce, training, and social interaction. Horses pawed the ground in stables, blacksmiths hammered metal, and apprentices ran errands for their masters. But as night fell, the same courtyard transformed into a stage for clandestine meetings. Secret lovers exchanged whispered promises in shadow corners, merchants conducted surreptitious trades, and spies could be spotted slipping messages through cracks in the stone walls. Some courtyards even contained concealed wells or cisterns, which serve as escape routes or hidden storage for essential supplies during sieges. The design of these open spaces was far from accidental. Every wall, doorway, and path was carefully planned to control both movement and perception. Perhaps most fascinating of all was the castle's use of psychological warfare. Lords and their advisors understood the power of fear as a weapon as well as any sword or arrow. Gargoyles and grotesque carvings were placed strategically, casting unsettling shadows at night. Massive gates and intimidating portcullises were designed not merely for defense, but to awe and terrify intruders. Even the layout of the castle, with its confusing staircases and narrow corridors, served to disorient and exhaust enemies. In some instances, sounds were deliberately amplified through hidden chambers, giving the impression of larger forces or restless spirits within the walls. The castle itself became an extension of strategy, a living entity designed to manipulate perception and control those who dared enter. Yet, despite all these defensive and secretive measures, life continued in unpredictable ways. Children played near the battlements, laughing as they chased one another, oblivious to the dangers that lurked in hidden rooms below. Servants whispered rumors as they worked, spreading stories of ghosts, secret treasure, or forbidden liaisons. Knights drilled in the courtyard, preparing for battles that might never come, their armor gleaming in the sunlight, while the Lord planned campaigns in distant lands, relying on both intelligence and superstition to guide his decisions. The castle was at once a fortress, a home, a community, and a stage for human drama, alive with the tensions, secrets, and surprises that define medieval life. As the sun climbs higher, revealing every crack, crevice, and carved stone, it becomes clear that the medieval castle is far more than an architectural marvel. It is a world in miniature, a living testament to human ingenuity, fear, and desire. Every shadow, every hidden door, and every echoing corridor tells a story, often untold, that challenges our understanding of life in the Middle Ages. The more we explore, the more we uncover astonishing truths, strange rooms, ingenious devices, secret chambers, and shocking customs that few modern eyes have witnessed. And these are only the first glimpses into the untold secrets that lie within the walls, waiting to reveal themselves to those daring enough to look beyond the obvious. Among the countless myths and stories whispered about medieval castles, one of the most astonishing secrets has to do with their hidden chambers of deception, a feature far more cunning than any visitor could imagine. These were not simple storage rooms or forgotten cellars. They were marvels of medieval engineering, designed to manipulate perception, conceal valuables, and even control life and death. Picture walking through the dimly lit corridors of a castle, your footsteps echoing against the cold stone. On the surface, everything seems ordinary. A tapestry hangs, depicting a proud battle scene. The corridor stretches straight ahead, inviting you forward. But in truth, every wall could be hiding a secret so well camouflaged that even the Lord himself might forget it existed until it was needed. These hidden chambers serve multiple purposes, some practical and others far more sinister. Some rooms were used to hide treasure, gold coins, precious gems, or stolen artifacts from invading armies. Imagine a small, dark room concealed behind a false panel in the library, the air thick with the scent of old paper and stone dust. Inside, crates of gold gleam in torchlight, stacked carefully, sometimes alongside rare manuscripts or enchanted objects. These rooms were intentionally difficult to access. Sliding panels could only be opened with specific keys or by triggering hidden levers, which might be disguised as coat hooks, carved statues, or even sections of a hearth. The ingenuity required to create these secret spaces is staggering, particularly considering the tools available at the time. Other chambers were more disturbing in nature. Some castles had rooms designed to imprison individuals secretly, often without trial or formal record. These spaces were tucked behind walls, under floors, or in the towers, accessible only to a select few. The prisoners might be political rivals, unfaithful spouses, or enemies of the Lord, and they could remain hidden for months or even years without anyone outside suspecting their existence. The conditions were harsh. Damp stone floors, little to no sunlight, and a single narrow slit for air. The sounds within these hidden cells were muffled but haunting. The echo of a whispered plea or the scratch of a prisoner marking the passage of time could haunt the walls for centuries. Some of these chambers were so well concealed that their existence was lost to history until modern archaeologists stumbled upon them, revealing the shocking depths of intrigue and cruelty in medieval life. In addition to concealment, hidden chambers sometimes served strategic purposes during sieges. Castles were not only defensive structures, but also tools of psychological warfare. Secret rooms allowed defenders to stage ambushes, disappear during enemy attacks, or hide critical supplies, such as weapons, food, and water. Some rooms were connected by complex tunnels leading to unexpected exits outside the castle walls. These passages were not only engineering feats, but also lifelines, They allowed lords, knights, or even entire families to escape in moment of peril, or to move unnoticed to relay messages, counterattack, or sabotage an enemy. It's staggering to imagine, in the midst of a siege, that unseen from above, a hidden network of chambers and tunnels could determine the fate of an entire stronghold. The construction of these hidden chambers often involved incredible attention to detail. Builders exploited natural features of the castle, such as thick walls, hollow spaces, or uneven terrain, to create concealed rooms that appeared completely ordinary. Some panels were designed to resemble the surrounding stonework perfectly, while floors or ceilings could hide trapdoors that blended seamlessly into the environment. There are documented cases where castles had false staircases, leading nowhere or looping back on themselves, designed to confuse intruders and delay attackers until reinforcements could arrive. For an enemy wandering these corridors, the castle could feel like a maze designed by the devil himself. The psychological impact of these hidden chambers extended beyond intruders. Within the castle, even residents and servants had to remain cautious. Whispers of secret rooms and hidden corridors became part of everyday life, shaping behavior and loyalty. Rumors could be as powerful as swords. A servant or knight unsure whether someone might be observing from a hidden panel might tread carefully, speak cautiously, and obey without question. In this way, the architecture itself enforced social order, blending secrecy with control. Every shadow, every false door, every seemingly empty wall held a potential for surprise, manipulation, or even danger. One of the most extraordinary aspects of these hidden chambers was the creativity in their design. Castle architects often incorporated secret spaces into areas where people least expected them. A library might hide a staircase descending into darkness. A pantry might conceal a room filled with weapons. A bedchamber could hide an escape route leading down the tower. The mechanism to access these rooms could be a simple lever disguised as a candlestick or a complex combination of sliding stones and hidden pins. Modern historians and archaeologists often marvel at the ingenuity, considering that these medieval engineers lacked modern tools, yet produced results that remain baffling centuries later. Some chambers also held ritual or mystical significance. In certain castles, secret rooms were believed to be blessed or cursed, designed to protect sacred relics or hide objects of immense spiritual importance. Priests or advisors might conduct private ceremonies within these spaces, away from the eyes of the general population. The very air in these chambers carried an aura of secrecy, a blend of incense, stone, and time, creating a sensory experience that few could describe without shivers. The mystique surrounding these rooms added another layer to the castle's power. Not just physical defense, but psychological, social, and spiritual authority. The discovery of such chambers in modern times has led to shocking revelations about the life and politics of medieval castles. Some rooms revealed entire forgotten stories of imprisonment, hidden alliances, or clandestine activities that had vanished from historical records. Scholars and explorers have unearthed manuscripts, personal belongings, and artifacts that challenge conventional understanding of daily life in the Middle Ages. The sheer number of hidden spaces found in even modest castles suggests that secrecy and subterfuge were not exceptions, but rather a fundamental part of castle life. And yet, even with all this ingenuity, the existence of hidden chambers created constant tension within the castle. Lords had to remember every hidden passage, mechanism, and trap. Servants feared being caught in places they didn't fully understand. Knights had to navigate corridors where a misstep could lead to accidental imprisonment. These secret rooms were simultaneously protective and dangerous, offering safety and opportunity, while also carrying the potential for disaster. The architecture of secrecy was a double-edged sword, as vital to survival as any moat or battlement, yet capable of ensnaring even the most cautious. Thus, the first untold secret of medieval castles is revealed. Hidden chambers were far more than clever storage. They were instruments of power, fear, survival, and mystery, quietly shaping the lives of everyone within the walls. The next time you walk through a castle corridor, consider the stones around you, behind the tapestry, beneath the floorboards, or inside a seemingly ordinary wall. There could be a room frozen in time, holding secrets that would astonish modern eyes, filled with echoes of human ambition, desperation, and ingenuity. As the day unfolds within the castle and the routine of servants, guards, and nobles continues, the presence of these hidden chambers serves as a silent reminder. In a world of medieval fortresses, nothing is truly as it seems. Every corner, every wall, every shadow may conceal something extraordinary, and as we delve deeper, we will uncover more secrets that are even stranger, more shocking, and far more astonishing than the first. As the castle hums with life, a hidden reality lurks beneath the grandeur and ceremonial splendor, the often shocking truth about hygiene and sanitation. To the untrained eye, the polished stone walls, the gleaming armor of knights, and the fragrant tapestries suggest a world of refinement. Yet behind these imposing fortifications lies a reality far more unsanitary and ingenious than one might expect. Castles, for all their architectural brilliance, were complex ecosystems where human waste refused and drainage presented constant challenges. Challenges that shaped design, daily routines, and even social hierarchies in ways few modern observers would anticipate. Consider the latrines or garderobes, as they were known. These weren't simple bathrooms, but vertical shafts built into the thickness of the walls, sometimes extending high above the ground or plunging deep into the moat below. On the surface, they might appear as small, inconspicuous holes behind wooden seats, but their placement was deliberate. Some castles even positioned these latrines above enemy lines or water channels, allowing waste to serve as a primitive defensive weapon during sieges. A noxious but effective deterrent against invaders daring to approach the walls. Imagine the smell. A mix of ammonia, human waste, damp stone, and the occasional overflow of runoff, drifting through corridors that the wind shifted the wrong way. The stench was so pervasive that it became part of daily life, a constant reminder of the castle's human vulnerability despite its stone walls. But castles were far from helpless against these challenges. Ingenious medieval architects developed methods to manage waste and prevent structural damage. Some garderobes included chutes leading to cesspits, carefully designed to prevent contamination of the water supply. Others emptied directly into rivers or moats, allowing flowing water to carry refuse away. Though the solution introduced its own risks, polluting water sources used for drinking or cooking downstream. In larger castles, complex drainage systems of stone channels and gutters directed rainwater, sewage, and kitchen waste to central collection points, revealing a level of engineering sophistication that rivals modern plumbing in concept, if not comfort. Hygiene, however, was not limited to waste management. Personal cleanliness was a ritual constrained by social class, resources, and superstition. Lords and noble women had access to wooden tubs, scented herbs, and linen towels, sometimes bathing in perfumed waters infused with roses, lavender, or rosemary. Meanwhile, servants and soldiers often relied on river water, brief splashes, or the occasional use of communal tubs, exposing them to infection and disease. Skin ailments, lice, and gastrointestinal illnesses were rampant, and chronic exposure to unsanitary conditions shaped both the architecture and daily schedules of castle life. Bathing might be scheduled carefully to avoid disrupting labor, guard duties, or social obligations, and some spaces were reserved solely for ritual purification or medicinal purposes. Yet the ingenuity of medieval sanitation goes beyond mere waste disposal. Some castles featured secret latrine chambers, cleverly hidden within the structure, providing both privacy and security for high-ranking residents. These chambers often had ventilation shafts that carried odors away from living quarters, and some were even designed with stone seats shaped to minimize exposure to contaminants. In certain instances, latrines doubled as observation points or small defensive outposts. The placement of a concealed hole might allow a defender to monitor or even attack enemies outside the castle while appearing engaged in an ordinary daily function. This dual purpose, practical necessity combined with tactical advantage, underscores how every element of castle life was intertwined with strategy and survival. Food preparation and kitchen hygiene were equally complicated. Kitchens were hot, smoky, and filled with the odors of roasting meat, boiling stews, and flour-dusted bread. Waste from cooking, bones, fat, and spoiled food needed to be disposed of carefully to prevent disease and vermin infestations. Rats and mice were constant threats, navigating hidden nooks and crannies, feasting on scraps, and spreading disease through the castle. To combat this, some castles employed terriers, cats, or even birds of prey, while others relied on traps and careful disposal methods. The kitchen, while vibrant with activity, was also a battlefield against filth, disease, and decay, a reminder that even in spaces dedicated to sustenance, survival depended on vigilance, ingenuity, and relentless labor. Water, the lifeblood of any fortress, posed its own challenges. While moats and wells provided essential resources, they could easily become contaminated, spreading disease among the inhabitants. Castles often featured sophisticated filtration or collection systems, using gravel, sand, and settling basins to purify water for drinking and cooking. Rainwater harvesting was another common strategy, with lead or stone channels directing water into cisterns. Some castles even had secret piping systems or hidden reservoirs, allowing lords to access clean water, while others relied on less sanitary sources. The management of water, like the design of latrines, reflected a delicate balance between practical necessity, defense, and social hierarchy. Despite these innovations, disease was unavoidable. Outbreaks of dysentery, typhoid, and other illnesses were frequent, often killing more people inside the castle than any external siege could. Ironically, these unsanitary conditions also reinforced the hierarchical structure. Those at the top enjoyed cleaner, more secure spaces, while servants, soldiers, and peasants bore the brunt of exposure. The walls that offered protection from enemies outside could not shield inhabitants from the invisible threats within. The untold secret here is clear. Castles, though seemingly impregnable and majestic, were also hotbeds of disease and filth, and surviving within them required more than courage or skill. It required vigilance, adaptation, and a strong stomach. Even the grandeur of castle banquets could not fully escape the shadow of hygiene concerns. Food might be stored in stone cellars, hanging from hooks to keep it away from vermin, or salted and smoked to extend shelf life. Utensils were reused, often without thorough cleaning, and the risk of contamination was ever present. Yet this created unique customs. Feasts were not only displays of wealth, but also careful orchestration to minimize health risks while impressing visitors. Wine and ale were often safer to drink than water, and communal drinking vessels were rinsed in running water or, in some cases, passed quickly between guests in ritualized fashion, reflecting both necessity and tradition. Thus, the second untold secret of medieval castles emerges. Beneath the grandeur and majesty lies a world dominated by the management of waste, disease, and hygiene, where ingenuity, superstition, and necessity intertwine to sustain life. Castles were living systems, balancing protection from external threats with a constant internal threat of filth and infection. The very walls that shielded lords and knights also amplified the challenges of survival, creating a paradox where security came at the cost of constant vigilance against decay. As the morning sun climbs higher, highlighting the turrets and battlements in golden light, it casts long shadows into the hidden corners of the castle, the narrow latrine shafts, the dark kitchens, and the secret channels of water and waste. These shadows hold stories that are as shocking as any siege or battle. The ingenuity of design, the cruelty of circumstance, and the persistence of life amid filth and danger. And as we continue, we will uncover secrets even stranger, more bizarre, and more shocking. Secrets that defy expectation and reveal the true, Untold Complexity of Medieval Castles. While most people imagine medieval castles as simply imposing walls and tall towers, the reality is far more cunning, dangerous, and in some cases, downright shocking. Behind the stone facade, hidden passages and grand halls lay elaborate defensive mechanisms and secret weapons, designed to protect inhabitants and terrify intruders. These weren't mere tricks of the trade. They were carefully engineered strategies that could determine the fate of armies, towns, and even entire regions. To truly understand a castle, one must peer beyond the battlements into the dark, twisting ingenuity of medieval defense. Every castle had features intended to confuse and exhaust attackers. Narrow staircases spiraled in ways that favored defenders, forcing enemies, usually right-handed, to attack awkwardly while being vulnerable to arrows or heavy objects dropped from above. But this was just the beginning. Some staircases contained hidden trapdoors, which, when triggered, would drop unsuspecting invaders into deep pits or spike-laden chambers below. Imagine a horror of soldiers marching confidently into a seemingly ordinary hallway, only for the floor to vanish beneath their feet, revealing an abyss filled with sharpened stakes, bones, or water, designed not just to injure, but to frighten, demoralize, and slow any advance. Beyond trapdoors, castles often had secret passages for offensive maneuvers. Behind tapestries, false walls, or even within chimney structures, narrow corridors allowed defenders to move unseen, appear unexpectedly, and attack intruders from angles they never anticipated. Some passages led directly to arrow slits or murder holes, small openings above doorways through which defenders could pour boiling water, pitch, or hot sand onto enemies below. The smell of burning flesh and metal was not uncommon during sieges, and such tactics ensured that even a small garrison could fend off a much larger force, exploiting the natural fear of the unknown and attackers. Hidden compartments were also used to store weapons in surprising places. In some castles, armories were built within walls, disguised as stone alcoves with crossbows, axes, and even early forms of gunpowder stored ready for sudden defense. Incredibly, certain castles even concealed small cannons or trebuchets within towers, only to reveal them at decisive moments. A common tactic involved storing weapons behind panels that appeared purely decorative, carved symbols or frescoes that could slide away to reveal deadly implements. For an enemy, this was terrifying. What seemed like an elegant, harmless wall could suddenly unleash a volley of arrows or rocks. One of the most shocking elements of castle defense was the use of boiling substances and deadly liquids in hidden chambers. Murder holes, positioned above entryways or weak points, allowed defenders to pour scalding oil, boiling water, or molten lead onto intruders below. Imagine approaching a seemingly secure gate, only to be met with burning liquid cascading from above. The screams, the chaos, and the panic created psychological terror, as well as physical harm. Some castles even combined these defenses with hidden archery slits or stone projectiles, creating overlapping layers of deadly traps. Attackers were not simply fighting the walls. They were battling a living, reactive fortress, aware of every movement and ready to strike. Even the outer defenses were often ingeniously lethal. Moats were more than simple water-filled ditches. Some contained hidden stakes, spikes, or sharp obstacles, submerged just beneath the surface. Enemies attempting to wade through would impale themselves before even reaching the walls. Drawbridges, too, could be rigged to collapse or pivot in unexpected ways, sending attackers into the depths below. Portcullises, massive iron gates, were frequently combined with murder holes and hidden arrow slits, ensuring that any assault on the gate would face a cascade of threats. Every entry point was designed to maximize fear, injury, and confusion. Castles also leveraged psychological warfare as part of their hidden defenses. Gargoyles and grotesque carvings were more than decoration. They cast eerie shadows, giving intruders the impression of lurking monsters in the dark. Secret tunnels allowed defenders to appear suddenly behind enemy lines, or create the illusion of supernatural forces defending the walls. Screams, echoes, and the clanging of hidden mechanisms contributed to a sense of panic and disorientation. The very architecture of the castle became a weapon, manipulating perception as much as delivering physical harm. Even the simplest looking rooms could conceal deadly surprises. Some banquet halls, for example, were built with hidden trap mechanisms under floors or beneath chairs, intended to protect the lord during feasts or negotiations. A seemingly innocent seat could tilt, drop, or trigger a chain reaction, sending invaders into pits or splashing boiling substances. The awareness that danger could lurk in ordinary places heightened tension for both residents and intruders, reinforcing the notion that castles were not only defensive, but also profoundly controlling environments. Certain castles incorporated secret armories for emergencies, hidden in walls or beneath floors, where defenders could access additional weapons without leaving safety. These rooms were carefully concealed, often behind false walls, statues, or bookshelves. Some armories contained specialized siege weapons that could be deployed through hidden slits, allowing defenders to launch surprise attacks on besieging forces. The combination of secrecy, surprise, and strategic placement made medieval castles far more lethal than any open battlefield confrontation. But these defenses weren't just for invaders. Hidden mechanisms and secret chambers were sometimes used to control residents and maintain social order. Fear of hidden punishment, such as sudden imprisonment, traps, or concealed weapons, ensured obedience among servants, soldiers, and even lower-ranking nobles. The castle itself became a tool of authority, silently enforcing rules and expectations. In essence, every stone, arch, and hallway served dual purposes: defense against outsiders and domination over insiders. Surprisingly, the knowledge and maintenance of these secret defenses required extreme trust and discipline. Only a few trusted individuals, lords, castle engineers, and select guards, knew the location and operation of these mechanisms. Mistakes could be fatal: a wrong lever pulled, a poorly maintained trapdoor, or an unguarded secret passage could endanger the castle's defenders. The complexity of these systems demonstrates a level of sophistication in both engineering and psychological strategy that many modern observers find astounding. Thus, the third untold secret of medieval castles emerges. They were not just stone fortresses, but living defensive organisms, filled with hidden traps, secret armories, and deadly mechanisms designed to terrify, harm, and control. The brilliance lies not only in their construction, but in their ability to manipulate perception, fear, and human behavior simultaneously. As the sun sets, casting long, ominous shadows across the walls, the castle transforms into a silent predator. Its corridors, rooms, and hidden mechanisms lie in wait, ever ready to spring their traps on the unwary. For those who only see the grandeur from afar, the true danger and ingenuity within remains invisible. But for those who dare to step inside, the secrets are deadly, astonishing, and unforgettable. And as we continue our journey, even more unbelievable truths await, revealing a world of medieval cunning, terror, and unimaginable ingenuity. While most visitors imagine medieval castles as silent fortresses of stone and steel, the truth is far more clandestine. Beneath the imposing battlements and echoing halls lay a world of espionage, secret messages, and spies, a hidden network as intricate and dangerous as the defensive mechanisms themselves. Life in a castle was not just about feasts, battles, and pageantry. It was also a constant game of information, deception, and surveillance. Knowledge could be more powerful than a sword, and those who controlled often held life-and-death power over friend and foe alike. Every lord knew that danger often came from within as much as from without. Courtiers, servants, and even family members could become unwitting or willing informants, passing intelligence to rivals, neighboring nobles, or invading forces. To counter this, castles developed hidden spaces and secret channels for communication. Hollow walls, false panels, and concealed corridors allowed messages, letters, and even people to move unseen, preserving the confidentiality of sensitive information. A well-timed note slipped through a hidden chute or delivered by a servant could alter the course of negotiation, prevent betrayal, or save a life during a siege. Some of the most ingenious methods involved coded messages and invisible ink. Nobles often employed scribes and advisors who specialized in cryptography, encoding letters in ways that could be understood only by those who knew the cipher. Certain manuscripts contained seemingly innocent illustrations, yet each detail, such as a flower, animal, or geometric pattern, conveyed critical information about troop movements, hidden treasure, or planned alliances. These secret communications were not only clever but life-saving, as intercepting an enemy's message could mean the difference between victory and disaster. Espionage extended even into daily castle routines. Servants, knights, and visiting merchants could all function as informal intelligence agents, observing and reporting what they saw. Hidden corridors, disguised doors, and inconspicuous alcoves allowed lords and advisors to watch conversations or eavesdrop on suspected conspirators. Imagine a noble stepping through a concealed panel behind a tapestry to witness a clandestine meeting between a rival and an ally. The information gathered could be leveraged to manipulate alliances, prevent coups, or gain advantage in courtly intrigue. The castle also employed professional spies, individuals trained in deception and subtlety. They were masters of disguise, often posing as servants, traders, or visiting dignitaries. Their presence within the walls was nearly invisible, yet their influence could be enormous. These spies monitored everything from supply shipments to private conversations, and they often acted preemptively to prevent rebellion or sabotage. A single whispered rumor, delivered at the right time by a trusted informant, could shift the balance of power within the castle, and perhaps beyond, influencing neighboring territories or the outcome of wars. Even children and seemingly innocuous servants could play a role in espionage. Messages might be hidden in toys, garments, or small objects, passed discreetly from one trusted person to another. Certain castles featured secret compartments within furniture, such as beds, chests, or benches, where letters, jewels, or sensitive objects could be hidden. In some cases, items were stored in plain sight, but arranged according to complex systems that only insiders understood. A seemingly ordinary tapestry or decorative vase might conceal a trove of intelligence, waiting for the right eyes to uncover it. The psychological aspect of espionage was equally important. Knowledge of hidden spies or secret observers instilled a constant sense of caution and paranoia. Courtiers whispered carefully, servants moved with precision, and even the lord of the castle had to consider the possibility of betrayal from those closest to him. The architecture itself reinforced these behaviors. Narrow staircases, hidden corridors, and secret balconies allowed for discreet observation, reminding everyone that the walls themselves could be watching. Fear of exposure became a tool of control, ensuring obedience and discouraging treachery. During wartime, these secret networks were crucial. A castle under siege was not just defended by walls, arrows, or boiling pitch. It was also protected by information. Scouts and spies moved silently through tunnels. Messengers carried critical intelligence under the cover of night, and coded signals, sometimes in the form of lanterns, flags, or sound, warned of impending attacks. The strategic advantage provided by information could tip the scales in battles that otherwise seemed evenly matched. Even a single intercepted message could save lives, thwart assassinations, or prevent a devastating surprise attack. Some castles incorporated concealed signaling systems to communicate with neighboring fortresses or villages. Fire beacons on towers, discreet reflections of sunlight through polished metal, or subtle changes in banners allowed lords to send warnings, requests for aid, or instructions over miles of territory. These networks of communication transformed a single castle into a hub of intelligence, linking it to a broader web of alliances and defenses. The very design of the castle was informed by the necessity of secrecy and speed, blending architecture, strategy, and human ingenuity. Interestingly, espionage also influenced culture and daily life within castles. Nobles often staged false rumors or misinformation campaigns, deliberately planting misleading intelligence to deceive rivals or enemies. Servants might be used to subtly spread stories that would reach adversaries, shaping perceptions and decisions far beyond the castle walls. The art of deception became as integral to castle life as the training of knights or the management of food and water supplies. Every conversation, every gesture, and every shadow could hold hidden meaning. Thus, the fourth untold secret of medieval castles emerges. They were not just fortresses of stone, but centers of espionage, coded communication, and secret observation, where intelligence could be as lethal as any sword. Castles were living networks of information, constantly monitoring, reporting, and manipulating the world both inside and outside their walls. In this hidden realm, trust was fragile, knowledge was power, and the unseen often wielded more influence than the visible. As twilight falls over the battlements, the castle seems to breathe with quiet life. Hidden observers peer through slits, letters move through secret chutes, and the hum of clandestine activity continues unnoticed. The grand halls and imposing walls are only one layer of reality. Beneath the surface lies a shadowy world of spies, secrets, and signals, one that shapes events far beyond the stone confines of fortress. And as we continue deeper into these mysteries, even stranger secrets await, blending the boundaries between human ingenuity, survival, and sheer audacity. When one thinks of medieval castles, the mind often jumps to towering stone walls, armored knights, and imposing lords. But what is often overlooked is the vital and sometimes bizarre role animals played within these fortresses. From clever survival strategies to psychological manipulation, animals were not mere companions or livestock. They were integrated into the very fabric of castle life, sometimes in ways so surprising that modern observers can hardly believe them. Their presence shaped daily routines, military strategies, and even the social hierarchy within the castle. Take, for example, the castle dogs. Beyond providing companionship or guarding the gates, certain breeds were trained for highly specialized military purposes. Large mastiffs and wolfhounds patrol courtyards and ramparts, their keen senses detecting intruders long before human eyes could. These dogs could intimidate or even attack enemies who attempted to scale walls or breach gates. The sight of these massive, growling creatures striking from the shadows sent fear into would-be invaders, sometimes halting assaults before a single arrow was fired. Yet the dogs were also highly trained for subtlety, capable of silently following intruders through narrow corridors, alerting guards to their presence without giving themselves away. Birds, too, played remarkable roles in castle life. Falcons were used for hunting, yes, but they also functioned as messengers and spies of a sort. Carrier pigeons, for instance, were vital in delivering urgent information over long distances. A lord besieged within his walls could send a note to an ally or receive intelligence from the outside world, bypassing enemy blockades entirely. The sight of a pigeon flying toward the horizon might seem mundane, but it represented a lifeline, carrying strategies, warnings, and even secret correspondence that could alter the outcome of a siege or political maneuver. In some cases, pigeons were used to monitor enemy activity, trained to return home from distant vantage points, providing lords with intelligence that human scouts could never gather. Other animals were woven into the castle's defense in less obvious ways. Cats, for example, were far more than cute companions. They were indispensable for controlling vermin populations. Mice and rats were a constant threat, consuming stored food and spreading disease throughout kitchens, pantries, and cellars. A castle without cats faced starvation or illness within months. Some castles even encouraged birds, such as owls or hawks, to nest nearby, creating a natural predator network that kept smaller pests in check. The clever use of animals as part of the castle's ecosystem reveals a surprising level of ecological awareness and practical ingenuity. Long before the concept of environmental design existed, horses were, of course, central to castle life, but their roles extended beyond transportation and cavalry. Stables were often built inside the castle walls, strategically positioned to provide quick access for mounted knights, while also contributing to the castle's defense. Horses were sometimes used to transport secret messages quickly during sieges, slipping through concealed gates or tunnels that humans could not navigate as efficiently. They were trained to remain calm amidst chaos, responding to commands of knights even during bombardments of arrows or catapult fire. The bond between knight and steed was not just practical, it was essential for survival, as the horses themselves became extensions of the castle's defensive strategy. One of the most shocking and little-known uses of animals involved psychological warfare. In certain castles, rats, crows, or even snakes were used intentionally to terrorize invaders or rebellious subjects. Imagine approaching a castle gate only to hear the unsettling screech of hidden crows or witness rats unleashed into a poorly lit corridor. The chaos and fear these animals induce could disrupt enemy formations, weaken morale, and make the defender's job far easier. Some lord went as far as creating hidden chambers where animals could be released strategically during attacks, combining natural instincts with human strategy in ways both brilliant and terrifying. Even livestock played unexpected roles beyond sustenance. Chickens, goats, and pigs were often kept within hidden enclosures or secret courtyards, ensuring a steady supply of food during sieges. Their placement was strategic. Some animals were used to lure attackers into ambushes, while others were maintained in concealed pens to support the castle's hidden kitchens. The smells, sounds, and movements of these animals were sometimes exploited intentionally, confusing enemies or masking the movement of soldiers through secret corridors. In essence, animals were both practical resources and integral components of the castle's layered defensive strategies. Interestingly, certain animals held symbolic or mystical significance within the castle as well. Owls, associated with wisdom and vigilance, were encouraged to nest near towers to reinforce the lord image as both intelligent and omnipresent. Dogs and falcons were sometimes included in artwork or heraldry, reminding visitors and residents alike of the castle's prowess and vigilance. Even the arrangement of animals, where they were kept, how they were displayed, served as a subtle tool of control, demonstrating both the lord's authority and his mastery over nature itself. The integration of animals into daily life also had profound social effects. Servants and stable hands were responsible not only for feeding and grooming animals, but also for managing their strategic deployment. Guards relied on dogs for alerts, while hunters depended on falcons and hounds for sport and sustenance. Every animal had a role, creating a complex interdependent network that kept the castle functioning smoothly. To outsiders, the castle may have seemed like a cold, stone fortress, but within, it was alive with animals, their senses, instincts, and behaviors tightly woven into human survival. Thus, the fifth untold secret of medieval castles emerges. Animals were indispensable, multifunctional participants in castle life, serving as guardians, messengers, psychological tools, and even strategic allies in both war and daily survival. Far from being passive companions, these creatures were trained, deployed, and integrated into the architecture, strategy, and social systems of the castle. Their presence demonstrates the remarkable ingenuity, resourcefulness, and adaptability of medieval engineers and lords, revealing yet another layer of complexity hidden behind the stone walls. As dusk falls and the castle settles into shadows, the sounds of dogs barking, horses neighing, and birds rustling remind us that life inside these fortresses was far more dynamic and far stranger than we might imagine. The castle was a living ecosystem, not just a structure, and every creature within it contributed to survival, defense, and the intricate web of secrets that define medieval existence. And as we continue our journey, even more astonishing truths await, Secrets so unexpected that they defy modern imagination. Beyond the stone walls, grand halls, and secret passages, medieval castles were centers of superstition, ritual, and occult practices, a side of life that often remained hidden from outsiders and even many residents. While the public saw grandeur, power, and feasting, the private spaces of castles were steeped in beliefs that governed everything from protection and prosperity to health, luck, and spiritual security. To the modern eye, some of these practices might seem strange or even terrifying, but for the inhabitants of the Middle Ages, they were deeply intertwined with survival, authority, and the mysterious forces of the world. Every castle had its rituals for protection, many tied directly to its architecture. Certain stones were believed to hold protective properties, and builders often incorporated them strategically within walls, foundations, and towers. In some castles, carvings of symbols, like crosses, pentagrams, or mysterious runes, were etched into hidden corners or behind chimneys, intended to ward off evil spirits, disease, or curses. The very layout of corridors, staircases, and rooms could reflect symbolic patterns meant to trap negative energy or guide benevolent forces. Imagine walking through a seemingly ordinary hallway, unaware that each step follows an ancient pattern designed to protect those within from unseen dangers. Superstitions extended to the daily routines of castle life. Lords, ladies, and servants often followed strict protocols when entering new rooms, opening doors, or handling objects believed to be cursed or enchanted. Mirrors, for example, were sometimes covered or turned to face walls at night to prevent spirits from entering the castle or observing its residents. Tapestries depicting battles, saints, or mythical creatures were more than decorative. They were believed to absorb negative energy, inspire courage, and even provide spiritual defense during sieges. Every object, every gesture, and every placement carried layers of meaning, reflecting a world in which the natural and supernatural were inseparable. Hidden chapels and secret altars were another striking aspect of castle life. These small, often concealed spaces allowed private devotion and rituals away from public scrutiny. Some chapels contained holy relics, enchanted items, or manuscripts believed to protect the castle and its inhabitants. Priests, advisors, or even lords themselves would conduct secret ceremonies, praying for victory in battle, fertility, health, or wealth. The air in these hidden chambers carried incense, candle smoke, and the weight of centuries of belief, creating a sensory experience that combined fear, reverence, and awe. To step inside such a room was to feel the thin veil between the material and spiritual worlds, a reality few outsiders could comprehend. Occult practices were not uncommon either, particularly among those seeking influence, power, or protection beyond what conventional religion offered. Certain lords employed alchemists, astrologers, or mystics to predict outcomes, craft talismans, or create protective charms. Some rooms in castles were dedicated to these secretive practices, hidden behind false walls or accessible only to trusted advisors. Candles, herbs, and symbolic objects were arranged meticulously in specific timings, often linked to lunar phases or celestial events, were observed with unwavering precision. The combination of ritual, secrecy, and perceived supernatural influence created an aura of mystery that bolstered lord authority and inspired both awe and fear among residents and visitors. Even the mundane was infused with superstition. Kitchens, for example, were not only centers of food preparation, but also sites of protective rituals. Herbs such as rosemary, thyme, and sage were not just for flavor. They were believed to ward off disease, evil spirits, and misfortune. Cooking fires were sometimes accompanied by whispered prayers or the careful placement of certain objects to ensure the meal was not cursed. The smell of roasting meat mingled with the fragrance of herbs, creating an atmosphere that was both practical and mystical. In these subtle ways, superstition permeated every corner of castle life, shaping actions, behaviors, and even architecture. Hidden staircases and secret passages also played roles in occult practices. Some were constructed according to symbolic designs meant to trap malevolent spirits or guide positive energy. Others allowed practitioners to move unnoticed through the castle during nocturnal rituals or clandestine ceremonies. Imagine a narrow corridor, silent except for your footsteps, designed not only for tactical advantage but also for spiritual protection. These secret paths were conduits of both practical and mystical power, blending engineering, belief, and ritual into a seamless whole. Certain castles were believed to be hotbeds of supernatural activity. Legends tell of ghosts, wraiths, and poltergeists haunting rooms, towers, or dungeons. While some of these stories were exaggerated to inspire fear or deter trespassers, many originated from the real presence of rituals, secret chambers, or hidden mechanisms that created strange sounds, moving shadows, or sudden drafts. A groaning floorboard, a sudden chill, or the flicker of candlelight could convince even the bravest knights that unseen forces were at work. In a world governed by superstition, perception was often indistinguishable from reality, and these experiences reinforced the aura of mystery surrounding castles. Even daily interactions were influenced by these beliefs. Courtiers and servants learned quickly to respect hidden spaces, follow ritualistic behaviors, and heed warnings about cursed objects or unlucky events. Disobedience or ignorance could bring real consequences, whether from social punishment, spiritual misfortune, or accidents cleverly designed into the architecture. Superstition was a tool of both control and protection, woven seamlessly into the rhythm of life within the castle. Thus, the sixth untold secret of medieval castles emerges. These fortresses were not merely military or residential structures, but also spiritual and mystical centers, where hidden rituals, protective charms, and occult practices shaped life, reinforced authority, and created an invisible layer of power and mystery. Castles were places where engineering, superstition, and belief converged, creating an environment in which survival depended not only on skill and courage, but also on adherence to hidden spiritual codes. As night falls over battlements, the castle transforms. Candlelight flickers in secret chapels, incense drifts from hidden altars, and shadows cast by carvings seem to dance with unseen forces. The walls are silent witnesses to centuries of ritual, superstition, and belief, reminding all who dwell within that the castle is not merely stone and mortar. It is a living, breathing entity, alive with mystery, power, and the hidden truths of medieval life. And as we continue, even more astonishing secrets await, each revealing layers of ingenuity, danger, and wonder that remain invisible to the casual observer. While the stone walls and towering battlements of medieval castles suggest strength and defense, many castles also house secrets of the mind and imagination, hidden in plain sight among tapestries, frescoes, and ancient manuscripts. Beyond their defensive purpose, castles were repositories of knowledge, art, and coded messages, often containing materials that were forbidden, controversial, or deeply mysterious. These hidden treasures were not just symbols of wealth or culture. They were tools, warnings, and sometimes even weapons of influence, reflecting the complexities of medieval society and the cunning of those who inhabited these fortresses. Every castle prominence featured a library or scriptorium, a quiet and often secret space where texts were copied, studied, and sometimes deliberately concealed. These were not always the sanitized libraries we imagine. Many housed texts considered heretical, dangerous, or politically sensitive. Books on alchemy, astrology, forbidden religious practices, or tactical warfare were often hidden behind false walls, in locked chests, or beneath floorboards, accessible only to trusted lords, scholars, or advisors. Imagine opening a leather-bound manuscript and discovering pages filled with coded formulas for chemical concoctions, or diagrams showing secret passages and siege tactics, a world of knowledge that was as potent as any sword or cannon. Tapestries, frescoes, and even the patterns on floors or ceilings sometimes served as visual codes, conveying messages to those trained to see them. At first glance, a tapestry might appear to depict a serene hunting scene or a religious tableau, but subtle details, the positioning of animals, the number of objects, or the orientation of figures, could communicate alliances, hidden treasures, or warnings of danger. These artworks functioned as silent, untraceable messengers, accessible only to few who understood their meaning. For example, a small detail like a lion's gaze or a hidden crescent moon could indicate support for a rival lord, a hidden route to the castle, or a secret alliance. To the untrained eye, these were mere decorations. To insiders, they were lifelines and weapons alike. The secret of nature of these artworks extended to ceilings and beams, where carvings and paintings concealed messages or protective symbols. Certain carvings were believed to ward off evil spirits, while others were intentionally ambiguous, designed to communicate with spies, allies, or rebellious subjects. Knights and courtiers learned to interpret these symbols subtly, reading between the lines to glean insights about power struggles, upcoming battles, or political intrigues. In this way, castles became living puzzles, where survival often depended as much on observation and intelligence as on physical strength. Libraries often contained manuscripts with encoded texts written in ciphers, obscure languages, or symbolic shorthand. Alchemist scholars and advisors used these codes to protect knowledge from inquisitors, invading forces, or even rival lords. Some texts contain instructions for creating medicinal compounds, poisons, or explosive mixtures, while others provided astrological guidance, moral philosophy, or political strategy. The very act of writing or copying these works was a high-stakes endeavor. A single error could expose a reader to persecution, imprisonment, or death. Yet the value of these secretive texts was immense, offering power, insight, and knowledge that could determine the fate of a castle or a kingdom. Tapestries and frescoes were also tools of persuasion and intimidation. A grand hall might display scenes of legendary battles, heroic feats, or divine judgment, not merely for decoration, but to impress and influence guests, allies, or enemies. Some of these artworks contain subtle warnings, symbols indicating loyalty, betrayal, or hidden traps. A visiting diplomat or rival lord might see a lion subtly crushing a serpent and interpret it as a warning or statement of dominance. These coded visual messages ensured that the castle's walls communicated silently but powerfully, blending artistry with strategy in ways rarely appreciated today. Even ordinary objects, chairs, tables, and cabinets, sometimes carried hidden inscriptions or secret compartments. Small etchings could indicate coded instructions, maps, or passwords, while concealed drawers or panels might hold letters, coins, or intelligence critical to the Lord's control. In some cases, these secrets were intentionally misleading, designed to confuse intruders or protect against theft. A chest that appeared empty could conceal a hidden compartment containing wealth or intelligence vital to the castle's defense. The interplay of deception and artistry made every object potentially meaningful, turning the entire castle into a repository of hidden knowledge. Religious texts and symbols often contained layers of hidden meaning. Psalms, prayers, and sacred images were sometimes annotated with cryptic notes or symbols that only insiders could understand. These annotations might reveal political alliances, coded warnings, or instructions for secret rituals, blending spiritual belief with strategic utility. The combination of the sacred and the secret reinforced the castle's dual identity, a place of worship and contemplation, yet also a fortress of knowledge, deception, and power. Even floor plans and architectural design could communicate hidden messages. The orientation of rooms, staircases, and halls often followed symbolic patterns or concealed meanings. Secret chambers, concealed corridors, and disguised exits were not just offensive, but also expressions of knowledge and control, guiding only those in the know through the complex labyrinth of the castle. For the uninitiated, these structures are confusing and disorienting, but for insiders, they were coded maps of power, access, and survival. Thus, the seventh untold secret of medieval castles emerges. Beyond their fortifications and grandeur, castles were repositories of hidden art, forbidden literature, and coded messages, a carefully orchestrated blend of intelligence, creativity, and subterfuge. Every tapestry, manuscript, and carving carried potential secrets, ensuring that the castle's walls were not silent, but constantly communicating with those who understood the code. These hidden layers reveal that castles were not merely physical fortresses. They were minds made stone, where knowledge, strategy, and secrecy intertwine in ways as vital as any battlement or moat. As candlelight flickers across walls adorned with tapestries, the hidden meanings shimmer in shadows. Manuscripts lie quietly in chests, and carvings on beams seem to whisper to those who can read their symbols. The castle, seemingly immobile and lifeless outsiders, pulses with a silent power of knowledge, secrets, and creativity. And as we move forward, even stranger and more astonishing truths await, revealing the untold ingenuity, danger, and wonder of medieval life behind the walls of these remarkable fortresses. When an enemy army appeared on the horizon, the castle transformed from a grand residence into a tense, claustrophobic arena of survival. While most people imagine sieges as chaotic battles at the walls, the reality was far more methodical, strategic, and sometimes downright shocking. Behind the imposing stone facades, lords and defenders had prepared elaborate systems to endure long periods of isolation, scarcity, and relentless psychological pressure. These survival tactics were not just practical. They were calculated, cunning, and often designed to manipulate both residents and attackers in ways few could anticipate. One of the most vital elements of survival was hidden food storage. Larders, pantries, and underground chambers were carefully stocked with grain, salted meat, dried fish, and preserved vegetables, sometimes enough to last months or even years. But what made these supplies extraordinary was their concealment and organization. Some castles had hidden compartments beneath floors or within walls, where essential provisions could be accessed only by trusted individuals. During a siege, these secret stores could be rationed meticulously, ensuring that even with the enemy pressing at the gates, life within the castle continued. Imagine the tension as servants silently retrieved supplies from concealed niches, while the sounds of battle echoed outside. The faint clatter of barrels and the whisper of footsteps a lifeline in a world under siege. Water was equally crucial. Many castles relied on hidden wells or cisterns, often located deep within the fortifications. Some were cleverly disguised as ordinary courtyards or concealed beneath floors and chambers. These water sources allowed residents to survive prolonged sieges without risking exposure to attackers. In some cases, underground tunnels connected the castle to nearby rivers or springs, permitting secret access to fresh water. The engineering required for such systems was astonishing, involving careful excavation, waterproofing, and the creation of hidden channels to maintain secrecy and prevent sabotage. Water was not just survival. It was control, a weapon of endurance that could turn the tide against even the most persistent siege. In addition to supplies, psychological strategies played a key role in survival, luring attackers into traps, spreading false intelligence, or creating illusions of greater strength were common tactics. Defenders sometimes deliberately revealed small caches of food or weapons to suggest abundance, while secretly rationing or concealing the bulk of their resources. Feigned activity on the walls, soldiers moving in rotation, banners waving, or the sounds of drills and clanging armor gave the illusion of a fully manned fortress, even when only a fraction of defenders remained. Such tactics exploited the fear and uncertainty of attackers, often leading them to abandon sieges prematurely. Secret tunnels were another vital component of survival. Some castles had hidden passages leading beyond the walls, allowing messengers, supplies, or small groups of soldiers to slip past enemy lines undetected. Others allowed for the escape of nobility, key advisors, or strategic assets if the siege became hopeless. These tunnels were narrow, dark, and perilous, designed to be navigable only by those who knew their layout. The very presence of such hidden exits could serve as a deterrent, making attackers wary of ambushes or unexpected counterattacks from within the fortress. Interestingly, Castles sometimes employed hidden weapons and defensive mechanisms specifically for prolonged sieges. Hoarded crossbows, arrows, stones, and even early forms of gunpowder were stored in concealed compartments. Boiling oil or pitch could be poured from murder holes, while hidden arrow slits allowed defenders to strike at attackers who believed themselves safe. Siege survival was not simply endurance. It was a constant interplay of offense and defense, with the castle itself acting as a weapon as well as a refuge. Food, water, and defense alone were not enough. Morale and discipline were equally critical. During long sieges, boredom, fear, and tension could break even the strongest community. Castles often employed rituals, entertainment, and structured routines to maintain order and keep spirits high. Music, storytelling, religious ceremonies, and scheduled drills helped prevent despair and unrest. Even small psychological cues, such as the strategic lighting of torches in visible windows or the organized appearance of activity in courtyards, reassured offenders and intimidated attackers simultaneously. The castle became a stage where survival was enacted through both tangible resources and subtle manipulation of perception. Another little-known tactic involved hidden food deception for attackers. In some cases, lords intentionally left small stores of food visible near outer walls or gatehouses, suggesting abundance and luring invaders toward traps. Meanwhile, the bulk of supplies remained secure within hidden chambers. The combination of secrecy, misdirection, and controlled rationing created a system where both physical and psychological resilience were maximized, often enabling a smaller garrison to outlast a far larger besieging force. Disease prevention was another secret of siege survival. Castles often had hidden chambers or segregated spaces for the sick, along with secret storage of herbs and medicinal preparations. Ventilation shafts, hidden drains, and discreet latrines helped prevent contamination from spreading through crowded quarters. Maintaining health was as crucial as preserving food and water. Even the smallest outbreak could compromise the castle's ability to hold out. Thus, the eighth untold secret of medieval castles emerges. Their survival depended not just on walls and weapons, but on hidden stores of food and water, secret tunnels, psychological manipulation, and meticulous planning to outlast the enemy. A castle under siege was a microcosm of strategy, engineering, and human endurance, where every stone, corridor, and hidden compartment played a role in sustaining life and preserving authority. As night falls over the besieged walls, the faint glow of torches illuminates secret chambers and hidden wells. The air is thick with anticipation, the scent of stored provisions, and the quiet tension of those who know every nook and passage of the fortress. Every creak, shadow, and distant sound carries meaning. The castle, silent to outsiders, is alive with calculated action, resilience, and ingenuity. And as we move deeper into these untold secrets, even stranger and more astonishing truths await, revealing medieval castles as marvels not only of stone and steel, but of strategy, cunning, and survival genius. Castles were not only fortresses of defense and strategy, they were also centers of hidden medicine, alchemy, and sometimes deadly experimentation. Beyond the grand halls and imposing walls, lords and their advisors maintained secret knowledge of treatments, remedies, and poisons that could save lives or eliminate enemies. In an era without hospitals or modern medicine, castles were both sanctuaries and laboratories, where survival depended on ingenuity, secrecy, and a delicate understanding of human physiology and psychology. Injuries from battles, accidents, or daily life were common, and castles developed hidden infirmaries to treat the wounded discreetly. These spaces were often tucked away behind false walls, beneath staircases, or in secluded towers, accessible only to trusted physicians, herbalists, or monks. The smell of herbs, resins, and tinctures mingled with the more disturbing scent of blood and disinfectants, creating an atmosphere both clinical and eerie. Patients were treated with remedies drawn from centuries of observation and experimentation, from poultices and salves to early forms of surgery that were as terrifying as they were effective. Herbal medicine played a central role. Plants such as rosemary, sage, willow, and mandrake were used for pain relief, infection control, and general healing. Some herbs were considered sacred or magical, believed to protect patients spiritually as well as physically. In hidden gardens or rooftop terraces, these plants were cultivated carefully, often in secret to prevent theft or misuse. Knowledge of their properties was jealously guarded, passed down orally or through coded manuscripts. A well-prepared castle could thus maintain health and vitality for months, even under siege conditions. Alchemy also featured prominently in the castle's hidden medical practices. Alchemists experimented with metals, minerals, and plant compounds to create potent medicines and occasionally toxic substances. Some concoctions were intended to cure diseases thought incurable, while others were deliberately poisonous, reserved for enemies, traitors, or political rivals. The line between healing and harming was thin, and the castle's inhabitants had to navigate with care. These hidden practices were part science, part superstition, and part strategic weaponry, blending knowledge, secrecy, and power in ways few outsiders could understand. Poisons were particularly insidious. Nobles often kept secret vials of toxic compounds, derived from plants, minerals, or animal venoms, stored in concealed compartments within their chambers or laboratories. These poisons could be delivered in food, drink, or even ointments, sometimes leaving no trace or evidence of foul play. The threat of poisoning created a climate of tension and mistrust within the castle, as courtiers, servants, and visitors never knew who might be wielding deadly knowledge behind closed doors. The presence of such hidden dangers transformed castles into arenas of subtle power, where knowledge could kill as effectively as any sword. Hidden chambers also contained tools for minor surgical procedures. Amputation, cauterization, and wound stitching were performed in these secret spaces, often without anesthesia, as we know it today. The use of herbal painkillers, alcohol, and crude instruments required precision, courage, and knowledge, and success could mean the difference between life and death. The faint scent of alcohol, burning herbs, and antiseptic resin filled these rooms as healers worked, blending medical care with ritualized practice, often invoking religious prayers for protection and success. Some castles even practiced experimental treatments. Alchemists and healers would test new remedies on volunteers, patients, or even captured enemies. These experiments could involve potent herbal mixtures, strange potions, or mechanical devices designed to treat ailments. While risky and sometimes fatal, the knowledge gained was invaluable, expanding the understanding of medicine in an era where disease and injury were constant threats. These secret experiments often occur behind closed doors, invisible to the majority of castle residents, adding a layer of fear, awe, and mystique to the fortress. Mental health and spiritual well-being were also addressed, albeit in ways that seem alien today. Monks, priests, or castle physicians often use rituals, charms, and symbolic treatments to treat conditions like anxiety, depression, or what was then considered spiritual possession. Candles, herbs, prayers, and protective symbols were believed to restore balance to both mind and body, blending medicine with superstition, and reinforcing perception that the castle itself was a sanctuary of safety and healing. Interestingly, knowledge of these medical practices was often weaponized against enemies. A lord could use his understanding of poisons, disease, or infection to weaken opposing forces, either by contaminating water sources or by spreading subtle rumors of illness. Even the fear of hidden toxins could serve as a deterrent, ensuring obedience and compliance. The very architecture of the castle, hidden passages, secret chambers, and concealed storerooms facilitated these strategies, allowing deadly knowledge to be deployed with precision and secrecy. Thus, the ninth untold secret of medieval castles emerges. They were not merely fortresses of defense and luxury, but also hidden centers of medical knowledge, poison, and experimental healing, blending science, superstition, and strategy in ways that could sustain life or end it. Behind walls, tapestries, and secret doors, castles held a quiet, often dangerous mastery over human health, demonstrating ingenuity and cunning far beyond what most imagine. As night deepens, the faint glow of lanterns illuminates hidden infirmaries and secret laboratories. The scent of herbs and antiseptics drifts through concealed corridors, reminding us that the castle's power extended beyond walls and weapons. It was a place where knowledge, life, and death intertwined, hidden from the eyes of the world. And as we move forward, the final layers of these astonishing secrets await, revealing even stranger and more incredible truths of medieval life within the fortress walls. Medieval castles were far more than military fortresses or homes of nobility. They were living stages of ritual, ceremony, and highly structured social customs, a world in which every action, gesture, and word was carefully orchestrated. To the casual observer, life inside might seem chaotic or lavish, but in reality, it followed invisible rules designed to reinforce hierarchy, loyalty, and control. These customs were sometimes bizarre, even shocking by modern standards, yet they were essential to maintaining order, authority, and survival within the walls. Daily routines were highly ritualized. From dawn, servants, knights, and nobles moved according to a strict schedule, with each action imbued with social significance. The ringing of bells, the opening of gates, and even the arrangement of the Lord's personal chambers followed precise rules. Meals were ceremonial events, with seating arrangements reflecting social rank, alliances, and political favor. A slight misstep, sitting in the wrong chair, addressing the wrong person first, or failing to observe proper etiquette, could result in insult, punishment, or even exile. The castle functioned as a stage where appearances, gestures, and symbolism held immense power, influencing relationships and decisions in ways unseen outside the walls. Even mundane activities like washing, dressing, or grooming were embedded with custom and ritual. Nobles were assisted by attendants who followed elaborate procedures, ensuring that clothing, jewelry, and armor were arranged perfectly, both for practicality and social signaling. Armor, in particular, was not only protective but ceremonial. The order of donning pieces, the way helmets were fastened, and the display of crests conveyed messages about rank, loyalty, and intent, in public or private. Appearance mattered as much as skill or courage, reinforcing the subtle hierarchies that governed castle life. Religious observances were deeply intertwined with these rituals. Chapels within the castle were more than places of worship. They were arenas of political and social display, where lords demonstrated piety, power, and influence. Daily prayers, the lighting of candles, and processions through halls followed precise patterns, reflecting both devotion and social order. Religious observance was often combined with practical functions, blessing weapons before battle, invoking protection over food stores, or marking significant moments in the calendar to ensure luck and prosperity. For outsiders, these ceremonies might seem superfluous or ceremonial, but within the castle, they were critical for maintaining spiritual, political, and social equilibrium. Strange customs and superstitions also shaped daily life. Certain knights or courtiers might be required to perform specific gestures, recite protective prayers, or avoid unlucky objects. Even the timing of tasks, when to sweep floors, feed animals, or open gates, was sometimes dictated by superstition or belief in celestial influence. The blending of practicality and superstition ensured that life within the castle was not only organized but also aligned with perceived cosmic and spiritual forces. These rituals acted as invisible scaffolding, structuring behavior, reducing uncertainty, and reinforcing authority. Entertainment, too, was highly structured and ritualized. Music, storytelling, and games were not casual diversions. They were carefully staged events that reinforced hierarchy, loyalty, and cultural identity. Minstrels, jesters, and performers were expected to follow specific protocols, while audiences responded according to strict etiquette. Even laughter and applause were controlled, reflecting social order and signaling favor or disapproval. In this way, entertainment was a tool for control and communication, weaving subtle lessons about behavior, allegiance, and power into seemingly innocent diversion. Rituals extended to the management of conflict and punishment within the castle. Disputes among residents, servants, or knights were often resolved according to ceremonial processes designed to preserve authority and prevent chaos. Public reprimands, fines, or symbolic punishments conveyed lessons without threatening the structural integrity of the social order. Some punishments were designed for psychological impact, using ritualized humiliation or fear to maintain obedience. The castle thus functioned as both home and court, a place where rules, rituals, and social control were inseparable. Even private moments were regulated by ritual. Lords and ladies followed strict protocols for sleeping arrangements, personal visits, and interactions with guests. Certain rooms were reserved for specific purposes, and access often required permission or adherence to ceremonial norms. Hidden codes and gestures allowed insiders to communicate subtly, conveying warnings, approvals, or secret messages without attracting attention. In essence, every action was performance, every glance potential signal, and every room a stage for maintaining power, loyalty, and social order. Seasonal ceremonies added yet another layer of complexity. Feasts, festivals, and celebrations were carefully choreographed to mark religious or political milestones, blending pageantry, symbolism, and ritualized behavior. These events showcase wealth, power, and influence, but they also reinforce alliances and hierarchy. Attendance, seating, and participation were not merely matters of convenience. They were acts of diplomacy, obedience, and social signaling. A misstep could be interpreted as disrespect or rebellion, while a well-timed gesture could cement favor, allegiance, or advantage. Thus, the 10th untold secret of medieval castles emerges. Life within these fortresses was governed by complex, sometimes bizarre rituals and social customs that maintained order, reinforced authority, and structured every moment of daily existence. From dawn to dusk, from private chambers to public halls, every action was imbued with meaning, blending practicality, superstition, and ceremony into a carefully orchestrated system of control. The castle was not merely stone and mortar. It was a living theater, where survival, loyalty, and influence were performed with precision and intention. As torches flicker along hallways and echo through grand chambers, the castle hums with invisible patterns of ritual and hierarchy. Every gesture, sound, and shadow is part of a vast choreography designed to preserve power, reinforce social order, and navigate the unseen currents of superstition, politics, and strategy. The walls themselves seem to pulse with purpose, silently witnessing centuries of life conducted according to rules that, to modern eyes, appear strange, shocking, and endlessly fascinating. And as we move closer to final revelations, the remaining secrets promise to astonish even further, revealing the full complexity and ingenuity of medieval castles. Beyond the walls, towers, and courtyards that visitors could see, medieval castles concealed a labyrinth of hidden architecture designed to confuse, protect, and sometimes terrify. These secret structures were not mere curiosities. They would result in meticulous planning, blending engineering, strategy, and psychological warfare. Lords and architects understood that stone and mortar alone could not guarantee safety. Survival required innovation, cunning, and the ability to deceive both enemies and untrusted residents. The hidden architecture of castles was as much a weapon as any arrow, sword, or catapult. Some of the most astonishing features were the hidden rooms and chambers scattered throughout the castles. Concealed behind false walls, beneath staircases, or within ceilings, these rooms served multiple purposes. They could be safe haven for nobility during a siege, secret storage for treasure, or hiding places for weapons and supplies. In some cases, entire families or key advisors could remain undetected for days, weeks, or even months if the castle were under attack. Imagine the tension of knowing that a hidden chamber above your head could contain allies silently observing, planning, or preparing to strike, while enemies rage in corridors below, unaware of the secret world around them. Secret passages were another hallmark of castle ingenuity. Narrow, winding corridors concealed behind tapestries or bookshelves allowed residents to move undetected, escape, or launch surprise attacks. Some passages led directly outside the castle walls, providing routes for messengers, supplies, or retreat. Others connected towers, dungeons, or kitchens, allowing defenders to quickly reposition without being seen. These passages were intentionally disorienting, with irregular turns, hidden doors, and uneven steps designed to confuse intruders while remaining navigable to those who knew the layout. A single misstep could lead an enemy into a dead end or trap, demonstrating the terrifying effectiveness of these concealed networks. Speaking of traps, many castles employed ingenious defensive mechanisms hidden in plain sight. Floors could collapse into pits, walls might conceal arrow slits or murder holes, and staircases sometimes twisted sharply to force attackers into disadvantageous positions. Some gates were rigged with secret latches or spike-filled chambers, designed to activate at the precise moment when invaders least expected. Even seemingly ordinary objects, tables, doors, or furniture, could conceal deadly surprises. These architectural traps combine physical danger with psychological pressure, keeping enemies uncertain, fearful, and vulnerable. Escape mechanisms were equally fascinating. Some castles featured hidden ladders, ropes, or hatches that led to the roofs, towers, or outside walls, allowing lords, knights, or trusted servants to flee if all else failed. In a world without modern communication or rescue forces, the ability to vanish undetected could mean the difference between life and death. Secret compartments could hold keys, weapons, or instructions for navigating these escape routes, emphasizing that the castle itself was a carefully choreographed machine of survival, not merely a residence. Even dungeons and prisons incorporated architectural deception. Cells might appear accessible but were difficult to escape due to hidden bars, traps, or misleading passages. Some dungeons contained false walls leading to escape routes, while others were designed to disorient and confine prisoners psychologically. The strategic placement of light, sound, and air currents amplified fear, confusion, and compliance, turning the dungeon into a psychological as well as physical trap. The architecture itself became a silent enforcer of authority and control. Hidden rooms were also used for espionage. Observing chambers, small slits in walls, or concealed balconies allowed castle lords to monitor meetings, track visitors, or eavesdrop on conversations without being detected. This ability to gather intelligence discreetly was as vital as having soldiers on the battlements. It allowed lords to stay ahead of political rivals, anticipate rebellions, or manipulate events from the shadows. The castle became a dynamic environment of surveillance, strategy, and subtle power, where knowledge gleaned from hidden spaces could be as decisive as the strongest battlements. Even ceremonial spaces sometimes incorporated hidden features. Thrones, chapels, and banquet halls often contained concealed compartments or escape routes. A lord could slip away during a tense negotiation, retrieve a hidden weapon, or access secret archives without anyone noticing. The blend of function, deception, and artistry in these designs reveals a remarkable ingenuity of medieval architects who combine engineering precision with an understanding of human behavior and fear. Thus, the 11th untold secret of medieval castles emerges. Beyond their imposing facade and grand halls, castles were intricate mazes of hidden rooms, secret passages, traps, and escape mechanisms designed to protect, deceive, and control. These features were not random but carefully planned, reflecting an understanding of both physical and psychological defense. In essence, the castle itself became a weapon, a living fortress where survival depended not only on strength or courage, but on knowledge, cunning, and the ability to navigate its secret spaces. As moonlight glints off hidden trapdoors and narrow corridors, one can imagine the silent tension within these walls, the thrill of discovery, the danger of exposure, and the mastery of those who knew every hidden turn. The castle is alive with possibility, mystery, and deadly precision, revealing that what lies beneath the surface is often far more astonishing than what appears on the surface. And as we move toward the next revelation, the final layers of these astonishing secrets promise to astonish even further, showcasing the ultimate ingenuity and cunning of medieval life behind stone walls. Medieval castles, though imposing and seemingly self-contained, were part of a vast, invisible network of communication, crucial for survival, defense, and political maneuvering. Beyond the stone walls and battlements, lords, guards, and messengers relied on secret codes, signals, and covert systems to transmit information quickly and safely. These methods were as ingenious as they were concealed, blending technology, human skill, and psychological insight in ways that allowed castles to operate as hubs of intelligence and strategy. One of the most fascinating techniques involved visual signaling. Flags, banners, and color cloths were raised or lowered in specific patterns to convey messages over long distances. Towers perched on hills could speak to each other using these signals, allowing castles to alert allies of approaching enemies, request reinforcements, or communicate weather conditions and strategic movements. Smoke from controlled fires was another signal system, sending coded puffs into the sky visible for miles around. The timing, number, and color of smoke signals could transmit detailed instructions, creating an early form of long-distance communication that was both silent and difficult for enemies to interpret. Inside the castle, light and sound played critical roles. Torchlight patterns, candle flickers, or reflective surfaces could send covert signals to alert guards or residents of imminent danger. Bells, drums, and other acoustic devices were used to relay commands during emergencies, often in sequences that were meaningful only to trained personnel. These methods allowed rapid, organized responses even in chaotic situations, giving defenders a strategic edge over attackers or intruders who had no knowledge of the codes. Messengers were essential to this hidden communication network. Trusted individuals could traverse secret tunnels, stairways, and hidden corridors to deliver information without being detected by enemies or outsiders. These messengers often carried not just verbal instructions, but sealed letters, coded manuscripts, or miniature symbolic objects, each conveying a specific meaning. Some letters were written in ciphers, using obscure scripts or invisible ink made from plant extracts. Only those who knew the code could decipher the message, ensuring that information remained secure even if intercepted. Covert networks extended beyond the castle walls. Alliances between castles, towns, and even neighboring kingdoms relied on spies, scouts, and messengers to maintain strategic awareness. Villagers and traders sometimes acted as unwitting carriers of information, while trusted courtiers or soldiers transmitted intelligence about troop movements, political changes, or supply lines. This network created a hidden web of knowledge, allowing castles to act with foresight and precision despite the absence of modern technology. The speed and secrecy of these communications often determined the success or failure of a siege, battle, or political maneuver. Coded symbols were also embedded in everyday objects. Tapestries, carvings, and even tableware could convey instructions, warnings, or requests for aid. A specific arrangement of chairs, the placement of flag, or the orientation of objects in a hall could indicate alliances, betrayals, or the presence of spies. To the untrained eye, these were ordinary items. To insiders, they were critical messages, silently transmitted through ordinary routines. This clever integration of communication into daily life allowed castles to operate as both physical and informational fortresses. Secret signals extended to defensive strategies. Hidden chambers, arrow slits, and murder holes were coordinated with sound and visual cues to control the battlefield from within. For example, a signal could trigger soldiers to open a portcullis, release boiling oil, or fire arrows at precise moments, maximizing the effectiveness of limited manpower. The synchronization of action relied on the mastery of these concealed communication methods, blending engineering, strategy, and human coordination into a deadly, almost invisible system. Even social interactions were used to transmit covert information. Courtiers, servants, and nobles developed subtle gestures, glances, and coded speech patterns to relay messages without raising suspicion. A flick of a hand, a specific phrase in conversation, or the way a servant carried an object could indicate danger, approval, or secret instructions. This layer of communication required acute observation and interpretation, reinforcing loyalty and trust among insiders, while keeping outsiders in the dark. Thus, the 12th untold secret of medieval castles emerges. These fortresses were not isolated homes of nobility. They were nodes in complex communication networks, capable of transmitting signals, messages, and intelligence through coded methods, visual cues, sound, and covert messengers. Castles were as much about information and strategy as they were about stone, steel, and armed defenders. Knowledge flowed invisibly through corridors, towers, and secret passages, connecting castles to allies and enabling the lords to act decisively in times of threat. As night settles over the battlements and signal fires flicker on distant hills, one can imagine the silent exchange of information weaving its web through the medieval landscape. Inside hidden passages, coded symbols, and vigilant messengers ensure that the castle operates as a living organism, responsive, coordinated, and always one step ahead of its enemies. The fortress is not silent. It whispers, signals, and commands in ways invisible to outsiders, revealing a hidden dimension of intelligence, strategy, and astonishing ingenuity. Even after centuries, medieval castles continue to captivate the imagination with mysteries, legends, and secrets that defy explanation. Beyond their walls of stone hidden chambers, secret tunnels, and ingenious defenses, many castles harbor enigmas that historians, archaeologists, and explorers still struggle to fully understand. These mysteries are not merely stories passed down through folklore. They are rooted in tangible evidence, unexplained architectural features, and shocking historical events that hint at a hidden world of intrigue, magic, and danger. Some castles contain rooms and corridors that seem to appear or vanish without reason. Archaeologists exploring certain fortresses have discovered walls that, according to historical records, should not exist, or doors that lead nowhere yet align perfectly with other hidden chambers. In other castles, secret passages remain uncharted, defying mapping efforts despite modern technology. These architectural anomalies fuel speculation about lost knowledge, forgotten tunnels, and the extraordinary skill of medieval architects who may have intentionally created illusions to confuse invaders and protect secrets. Legends of hidden treasures and cursed hoards abound. Many castles are rumored to conceal gold, jewels, or priceless manuscripts, locked away in secret vaults or beneath false floors. Some of these treasures are said to be cursed, bringing misfortune or death to those who seek them. Historical records sometimes hint at these hoards, but attempt to locate them often end in failure or tragedy, leaving behind tantalizing mysteries. The notion that vast riches might lie hidden beneath stone floors or behind secret panels continues to inspire treasure hunters and storytellers alike. Ghost stories and supernatural legends also abound. Castles are frequently associated with phantoms, apparitions, and unexplainable sounds, from footsteps in empty halls to mysterious voices echoing through chambers. Some historians speculate these legends have a basis in reality, pointing to hidden chambers, underground tunnels, and secret escape routes that might produce strange echoes or disorient visitors. Others believe that fear, superstition, and the intense psychological environment of castle life fueled these tales, leaving a legacy of haunted fortresses that continues to fascinate and terrify. Certain castles are connected to political intrigues and sudden disappearances that remain unsolved to this day. Courtiers, nobles, and even royalty vanish mysteriously, often during times of siege or political upheaval. Historical documents suggest imprisonment in hidden dungeons, execution through concealed traps, or secret exile, but definitive evidence is rare. These unsolved mysteries create an air of perpetual suspense, as if the castles themselves are silent witnesses to secrets too dangerous or scandalous to be revealed. Some fortresses display baffling architectural choices, like staircases that ascend in counterintuitive directions, windows that serve no apparent purpose, or rooms with impossible proportions. Scholars debate whether these designs were symbolic, functional, or intentionally deceptive. Some suggest that certain layouts were meant to disorient invaders, conceal strategic positions, or create optical illusions. Others argue that hidden knowledge, lost over centuries, explains these anomalies, hinting at a medieval understanding of architecture and psychology far more advanced than previously believed. Even within daily life, castles leave behind mysteries about the people who live there. Personal letters, diaries, and artifacts sometimes hint at secret societies, forbidden romances, or clandestine alliances that shaped history behind the scenes. The interplay of power, secrecy, and survival produce lives of astonishing complexity, where every action could have dramatic consequences. Historians piecing together these fragments are left with tantalizing glimpses, but the full stories often remain just out of reach, hidden behind stone walls and centuries of silence. Some castles also contain enigmatic symbols, carvings, and inscriptions that defy interpretation. Patterns etched into stone, unusual emblems in ceilings, or coded markings in manuscripts suggest knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, or mystical practices. Scholars debate their meaning. Were they protective symbols, secret messages, or artistic expressions? Some hint at lost scientific understanding or hidden philosophical ideas, offering a tantalizing glimpse into the intellectual world of medieval life. These symbols suggest that castles were not merely homes or fortresses, but centers of culture, learning, and profound secrecy. Finally, the persistence of unsolved mysteries in castles demonstrates that medieval life was more intricate, cunning, and astonishing than most modern imaginations allow. Every hidden passage, coded symbol, secret chamber, and architectural oddity reflects the ingenuity, resourcefulness, and sometimes the sheer audacity of those who built and inhabited these fortresses. Castles were not static relics. They were living, breathing entities shaped by human ambition, fear, creativity, and survival instinct. The walls still whisper secrets. The tunnels still hold stories, and the legends continue to challenge our understanding of history. Thus, the 13th and final untold secret of medieval castles emerges. These fortresses are enduring mysteries, filled with hidden treasures, unexplained architecture, lost knowledge, and legends that continue to baffle and astonish historians to this day. They remind us that beneath the grandeur, stone, and steel lies a world of ingenuity, danger, and imagination far richer and stranger than most realize. Medieval castles were more than fortresses. They were stages for secrecy, theaters of survival, and repositories of untold human ambition. As dawn breaks over the battlements and the first rays of sunlight touch the towers, one can almost hear centuries of whispers, footfalls, and secrets echoing through the halls. The walls, silent yet alive, keep their mysteries close, daring anyone who enters to explore, discover, and wonder. And even today, these castles continue to captivate us, reminding us that the medieval world was far more extraordinary and far more secretive than we could ever have imagined.